ladies and gentlemen of the council. Good to be with you. Thank you for your public service. I thought I'd share with you in the spirit of the season a passage from Scripture that's 2,800 years old, but has special meaning for the church in the Christmas season, but also I thought might be of help to you as you seek to serve and think about those qualities of leadership that for centuries have been important. Passages from Isaiah, and then I'll have a prayer. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us, authority rests on his shoulders. He is wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time on and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. Let us pray. Merciful and everlasting God, we pray your guidance and your blessing upon this city council as they employ their authority, the authority bestowed upon them by the nature of their office. As they serve the public good in fulfilling their responsibilities, grant them the desire to establish in this community the peace and the justice you intend for all the world. We thank you that as we labor not alone, for you are Emmanuel, God with us. Glory to you in the highest heaven. Alleluia. Amen. My part is brief. It's good to be with you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, December 20th, 2010 to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be happy to call roll for the December 20th, 2010 regular meeting. However, I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearings or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. When you hear the bell, you have 30 seconds to complete your remarks. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided, however, that such an individual has filed a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within this chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Julie Zonner Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Alan Tart.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was at a swearing in today, Joe, just so you know there was a Boy Scout. I mean, it's two. All right. Good. Okay. Just again, want to welcome everybody here. I appreciate you being here tonight. I'll go ahead and start and ask the city clerk to sound the next item.
Next item is approval of meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 10-1307.
Okay. Do we have any items on the agenda that we want to discuss?
Executive session, pending litigation, land acquisition.
Okay. Is there any other items? If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting agenda item number 10-1307 with the addition of an executive session to discuss pending litigation and land acquisition.
Second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 public comments. Our first comment comes from Amy Peters.
Okay, that's not
Okay.
just a general public on the agenda item. Okay,
Diane Maloney.
on the agenda item itself. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the consent agenda?
Our first item is approval of the December 6, 2010 regular council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 10, 1308. Our next item is approval of a professional engineering services agreement between the City of Milton, Georgia, and David A. Burr, Engineers and Surveyors, Inc., in the amount of $8,870 for a drainage repair project on Thompson Road. Agenda item number 10, 1309. Next item is approval of a task order with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc., for a concept study for Mayfield Road at Mid-Broadwell Road intersection in the amount of $114,000, $3.58. Agenda item number 10, 1310. Next item is approval of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Milton and Georgia DNR, continuing our commitment to the early demonstration project. This is agenda item number 10, 1311. Our fifth item is approval of a memorandum of agreement with Fulton County Soil and Water Conservation District and State Soil and Water Conservation Commission to conduct an independent plan review and permit approvals for a fully functioning soil and erosion control issuing authority. This is agenda item number 10, 1312. Our sixth and final consent agenda item is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Safe Built Georgia, Inc. to provide building plan review and inspection services. This is agenda item number 10, 1313.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda?
Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Tart to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you for being here, Wade. We'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
This is a proclamation recognizing Road to Safety Winter. This is presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, this is exciting. This is some of the fun stuff we get to do, and it is not only great because of the winners of this this program that we're going to make the proclamation, but also we appreciate the citizens behind it that got it started and are making our community aware of safety, and we all want our citizens and our teenagers and everybody safe on the road. So tonight we're going to welcome Lisa Colley from Protect Milton and Katie Reeves from Fulton County School Board. I don't know that I've seen.
Katie is not here, and neither is Principal Dunn. I believe we're both have gotten sick. So
Okay. Okay, thank you. Tim Enlow is here. So, in the winner of this year's Road to Safety contest, and forgive me with the last name, but Andrew, is it Gisette? Jessica? Jeske, okay, from Alpharetta High School. And the students entered into this Road to Safety contest created by the Milton residents, Mrs. Colley and Mr. Enlow, asking high school students to submit 2-minute videos which would send a clear message to other students about the distractions and dangers they face as new drivers. Before I make the proclamation and we look at the video, I believe Ms. Colley, Lisa Colley would like to say a few words, and then we'll show the video from the contest, the winning video.
Well,
I really wasn't prepared to talk, but that's okay. We had 4 groups of kids enter the contest, 2 from Milton High School, 2 from Alpharetta High School, and the videos are really, really good. They're all different, and the quality of the videos and the time and effort they put into them was pretty amazing, much more than we had expected. But with Ms. Reeves not being here, they love the program so much that the Fulton County Board of Education wants to take it to all 7 high schools north of the Chattahoochee next year. And then from there, we want to go through the whole county and then possibly statewide, down the road. You'll see once you see the videos, it's really great. And the kids like it and they enjoy it, and they're speaking to other students, which, hearing from other kids, how dangerous it is, especially out here in Milton on the road. So let's watch the videos, and then we'll introduce Andrew and do the proclamation.
Good deal. Yeah, I'd like to, if it's okay, we'll watch the video, and then we'll do the proclamation.
Number 2, don't watch your music while driving. Number 3, buckle up. The Georgia law is clear your ticket, but it should be quick your die. Remember to tell any passengers to buckle up too. Number 4, check your mirrors, front and behind you. Now you're ready, kids. Be safe. You are really dumb.
The New York State 5 girls who had just graduated from high school were killed when their SUV hit a tractor trailer and went up in flames. Investigators found that not only was the 17-year-old driver using her cell phone, but text messages were also being sent just before the crash. This needs to be a wake-up call. Traffic accidents are the leading cause of death among teenagers.
Yeah, that's good.
You'd have ratings to go on with this.
Before you drive, is it really worth a life? Just think. Before you drive, is it really worth a life? Many new drivers seem like it breathes. Much past the test, all you say is cheese. What they don't read lies on the strength. Till the intellect living your trash. It might be hard to focus with all the stuff around, but I bet it's better than having your wrist down.
I have to say those were not only very informative, but great quality and took a lot of thought. And I'm sure you guys had a hard time picking a winner too. They all were good, but that Andrew's was exceptional. So we're pleased. That looks like something that could be sent all over the state and have everybody see. So right now I'm going to read the proclamation, and then in a few minutes I'll have Andrew come up and we'll present it to him. And this is honoring the Road to Safety program in its first winter. Alpharetta High School student Andrew Jeski. Whereas the Road to Safety program was created in 2010 by Milton residents Lisa Colley and Tim Enlow. Whereas their companies Protect Milton, Inc. and Access Milton sponsored the program with the Fulton County Board of Education to educate, inform, and increase the awareness of distractions and dangers teenagers face as new and inexperienced drivers, and with the ultimate goal of saving lives. And whereas the contest allowed students to submit a 2-minute video they created that sent a clear message to other students about the distraction and dangers they all face as new drivers. And whereas this year's contest was the first annual event and included participants from Alpharetta and Milton High Schools and support from the Milton and Alpharetta Police Departments. And whereas next year's contest will include all 7 Fulton County high schools north of the Chattahoochee River. And whereas this year's winner was Alpharetta High School student Andrew Jeski, who won a full day of defensive driving at the Richard Petty Defensive Driving School at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. That's pretty cool. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby proclaim our commitment to the Road of Safety program in the City of Milton, Georgia, and congratulate Andrew for his work and creativity, given under our hand and seal of the City of Milton, Georgia, on this 29th day of December 2010. And if we could have Andrew and Ms. Colley and Mr. Enlow step forward. I'll present this, and if the council would like to come down, we'll get a picture.
No, we moved in here to get out of the picture, and now we're in the picture.
Council wants to come down. Hopefully this will help you in your next career.
Stick with me. One, two, three. And one, two, three. Let me get one with his hand. Look council.
I'll set it.
pretty good. And entertaining, too. Okay. Thanks again, Lisa and Tim, also. Okay, we're going to move on to our first presentation. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
First item is approval of an ordinance to adopt the amended local emergency operations plan. This is agenda item number 10, 13, 14. Our second item is approval of an ordinance to adopt the job classification listing for current approved positions. Agenda item number 10, 13, 15.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'll move to approve the first presentation. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, now we'll move on to our zoning agenda. Will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and sound the item?
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda. Those items include rezoning, petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated current variances. In addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments, the petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk staff will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of this meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the council during the meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Department of Community Development to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government, which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first zoning item is RZ 10-06, to amend the City of Milton zoning ordinance, Section 64-1820, landscaping business, plant nursery or garden center with indoor retail component. This is agenda item number 10-1300. First presentation on December 6th, discussed today at the special called work session, presented by Lynn Tully.
I'll take this one, I guess, Sudi, just to kind of bring us current from where we were at the work session. There's really not a lot of new information by way of a presentation that staff's going to make. I think we can get to the answer here in a minute if you want to move this to February the 21st. I think the best thing to do would be to hear public comment and then take action to potentially defer this to
See if
February.
we'll go ahead and allow public comment, and then
Yes, our first, we have 3 public comments. One I'll read into the record after the 2 other individuals have spoken. Our first public comment comes from Amy Peters.
Good evening. I came here tonight to ask you to consider many of the standards that have been proposed. The hours of operations, the numbers of trucks, the size of the trucks, the number of trucks and worker trips. But at the end of the day, Really, what I'm here to ask you is to restrict these intensive commercial businesses to commercial zones. Landscape businesses provide a valuable service for our citizens, but due to the commercial nature of these businesses and related equipment, I feel strongly that Council consider properly citing these businesses in commercial zones. I believe that both Alpharetta and Roswell require these businesses to locate in commercial zones, and I ask that our Milton City Council provide our citizens with the same protections as neighboring cities. These businesses present unique challenges in enforcement, whether it's the number of trucks on site, the additional traffic generated by the trucks and personnel, the noise from the dumpsters, or the heavy equipment stored on the premises and trailered to customer locations. It's difficult at best to enforce the ordinances. These businesses are thus properly cited in commercial zones where their intense uses will blend with the surrounding uses, not stand in stark contrast, where Milton neighbors will applaud the growth that sound business and respect for community will generate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment comes from Diane Maloney.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you guys are going to hopefully defer this. There was a lot of questions, and I'm not quite as prepared as Amy was, but I do have a few thoughts that came up. Pardon?
Do you mind, just for the record, just
Oh, yeah,
state your name and address?
Sure. Diane Maloney, 14430 Wood Road.
Thank you.
Just a couple things that I was thinking about as you guys were discussing in your work session tonight were I'm not sure how many businesses that we're talking about, and I don't know, what it seems like there's quite a few, so that I hope you guys really take that into account. And the ones that are already there, are they going to be grandfathered in? I'm just wondering how that's going to work. And then, as Mr. Ragsdale said, we don't know how big the businesses are going to be, so hopefully you'll take that into consideration, especially because I feel like this is going to be setting a precedent, and we only have one chance to get it right, so hopefully you guys will take, all that into consideration. And then the other thing from a numbers point of view, and I don't know how all this works with the zoning and the special use permits, but my sort of understanding with the special use permits is that we shouldn't be giving them out left and right, that there really should be for something very special. In landscaping businesses, if there are that many, I don't know why they're all being granted special use permits, but they really are not appropriate in residential neighborhoods. And the other thing that you guys were discussing was the local street issue. And I live on a dirt road that has no, I don't know what the term is next to the road, but we have very deep ditches. It's really not appropriate for these trucks to be going up and down our road. And it's also part of the Milton Trail system. And I invite any of you guys to come down Phillips Circle, where many of our neighbors park on a daily basis and use our road as a greenway, which we're so happy for. But you need to take that into consideration in your definition of your local street. And I don't think that dirt roads really can support landscaping businesses, so I don't know if that can be worked into the definition somehow, but I personally would like to see that. And I thank all of you guys for everything that you do for our city, and I do pray for you guys all the time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And also, I may have, did Ms. Peters, did you repeat your address for the record in her public comment? If maybe just our city clerk could, on the card, if you could just read it for the record.
Yes, sir. Amy Peters, 14475 Wood Road, Milton, Georgia, 3004.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for your public comment, and we also obviously follow along as we continue talking about this in our next work session and subsequent meetings. So, and I believe you had one more to read?
Yes, sir. We have one email that would like to be read into the record in opposition. It comes from Kim Horn, Dear Mayor, City Council, and staff, I would like to respectfully submit this email for your consideration, as I am not able to make a meeting this evening and wanted to share my thoughts and concerns with you over the landscaping item agenda this evening. And she states the agenda item numbers RZ1006 and RZ1008. My concern is that a landscaping business should be on C1, C2, or LI zoned property. A landscaping business without the pure horticultural or agricultural element is a business and should be on approximately zoned land. I have spoken with staff at both City of Alpharetta and City of Roswell, and neither allow landscaping businesses on AG1 land. Why would Milton approve the amendment to Chapter 64 that would allow non-agricultural businesses on AG1 land? Additional concerns with the amendments are: this draft ordinance makes it very clear that the definition of a landscaping business is not involved with horticulture or agriculture. Landscape business means a business that provides services in locations away from the landscape business operator's property. While most of the actual landscape activity occurs off-site, the business owner's property may be approved for equipment storage, parking, material storage, and a building or buildings for storage and plant propagation. Landscape businesses typically include activities as lawn installation, mowing and maintenance, fertilization, and/or insecticide treatment, the planting and maintenance of trees, shrubs, and flowers, tree and stump removal, the spreading and grading of topsoil, mulch, or other ground covers, the installation of stone brick and block walkways and stone walls, and the temporary storage of plant trimmings. Both Alpharetta and Roswell were very clear that when there is a storage of landscape materials, that the permitted zoning is C2 or L1, light industrial. The draft ordinance indicates hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Currently, the approved hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Such businesses should be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The draft language limits the number of employee vehicles to 6, but does not limit the company's vehicles. In other words, they could have as many industrial, commercial vehicles as they want, as well as item number 6 states that the landscaping business vehicles being garaged or screened, but does not limit the number of business vehicles. I request you deny the amendments to Chapter 64, City of Milton zoning ordinance as it pertains to landscape business use permit and definition. Thank you for your consideration. Kim.
Okay. All right, that's done public comment on this item. Again, if it's clear that the council would like to defer this or reconsider this with another work session and move forward, what would be our exact process on this, Mr. City Attorney?
I think just, depending upon whether the council has any additional questions for staff, certainly those would be appropriate now, but at the end of it, I think we would just need to make a motion to defer to a time certain.
Okay. I'll open it up now to any specific questions that council may have to staff, and then after that, ask for a motion. So, anyone have a question they would like to ask right now? Sure. Julie?
Based on the earlier discussion during the work session and the points that have just been brought up in public comment, I would like to ask staff if we indeed defer this to another work session, some of the things that I hope that we could get information about would be, what do other jurisdictions do? We've heard reference to what other jurisdictions do, but it would be helpful to have that information. And Glenn, maybe that's something you can address now, or at a minimum, address it when we get back together to discuss this. But I think what other jurisdictions do would be valuable, as well as why they do what they do. So that information would be helpful. I'd also like to provide credence to some of the things that Councilmember Lusk spoke about earlier. And just to capture, I think some of what I heard was that some of the vagueness that's currently in the draft is a concern, and I would echo those concerns. I think that wherever we talk about appropriate size, we need to give definition to that. What is appropriate? And is it appropriate in AG1, or does it indeed need to be considered for a commercial zoning, as was stated by several of the community members? I think also Councilmember Lust talked about the vagueness surrounding storage and size of containers. Again, I don't think that those are things that we want to leave to chance, especially when we're looking at something that may or may not be commensurate with AG1 residential land. The topic of road, and again, these were great questions that other council members had. I'm just trying to make sure that we capture those when we get to our next gathering. As it relates to road definitions, and I know that some of the folks that were here earlier obviously are very concerned about open road neighborhoods. I think it's important, and I think staff even mentioned this, that our roadways, even if they're not local, arterial and collector roads within Milton have neighborhood components to them. So an arterial and collector road in and of itself may not make for an appropriate location. So I think we need to think about what are our roadways, what do we want those roadways to be or not be. So I just think that's another area that requires some additional dialogue, given that we're trying to keep a flavor throughout Milton, not just on our local roads or on our gravel roads, but I think in many of our open roadway and neighborhoods. I think the point about equipment and equipment type was important. Councilmember Lust talked about types of equipment and the fact that right now it does not make reference to dumpsters. Obviously, that's something that needs to be addressed. And I made note when there was some commentary from staff, they talked about commercial dumpsters. To me, that makes a point. Commercial dumpsters, yet we're looking at commercial dumpsters on AG1 land. That, to me, is a little bit of an oxymoron. So if we're looking at commercial equipment, it does seem to beg the question, where's the appropriate place for this to be cited? I also heard discussion earlier during the special called work session about screening versus buffering. That, to me, as I look at this and heard the questions of other council members, it doesn't seem to be specific enough. What is it to be appropriately screened? And the earlier dialogue, when it talked about storage of materials, to talk about fencing and size of piles, if you will. What happens when you have a property that topographically is higher than another? Obviously, in our areas, we have a lot of steep slopes. So how do we deal with screening if you have a property that's adjacent to something where that other property is looking down? So, again, I think it begs the question of maybe some more detail. The last public comment that was read talked about hours of operation. Again, I think it's something that we need to talk about and discuss, whether it be on a commercially zoned area or if we look at just adding development standards, whatever that would be. It would seem that we need to be consistent with our noise ordinance and also consistent with timeframes that would make sense for adjacent properties. I think also the point was made by another council member about number of commercial vehicles, and it may be the intent, even though it doesn't capture it here, in talking about intensity, because I heard our council as well as the Planning Commission mention that intensity of use is a concern, and I think our city attorney also mentioned that. But there's no dialogue within this language that would speak to intensity of use. And I think we heard from the public that intensity of use is defined by type of material. It's defined by size of equipment, number of pieces of equipment. Is it garaged or is it screened? Should that be one or the other rather than an or? Is it a requirement? But I feel it is important that we provide definitions around how many, what type, size, et cetera. And I would like to see us explore what options are out there other than just an AG1 use permit. And I've got others, but I think that for the most part that hopefully parallels and echoes some of what Councilmember Lusk and Tart mentioned. And I just appreciate the additional work from staff.
Okay. Anyone else have a question or comment before we make a motion? Bill?
Briefly. I'd like to see some more attention directed towards Section 64-1 definitions. And just state the first sentence there. Landscape business means a business providing the services described below at remote off-site locations other than the landscape business operator's property. Seems kind of indefinite there. It infers that one property is owned by the landscape business operator and the other is not. So I guess it implies that the landscape business operator's property is his residence. That's the implication that I get out of it. I guess if we're going to look at this whole thing, maybe if we could be a little more specific on that definition.
Okay. Staff comments?
I do. I'm going to ask a question just because I'm going to throw it out there and we'll see where it goes. With the definition of landscape business as you have in your packet, the one that's either done through staff or the one that's submitted through the attorney's office, the question I have is that do you believe, either individually or collectively, that a business that operates under that definition should be permitted at all in AG1 zone, in AG1 zone? And that's kind of the question we've got to get to here. Maybe we don't get to it tonight, but I'm starting to see us get to the fringes of that question. Is that should landscape businesses, by this definition, be an approved use in C1 and excluded in AG1? That's a road we could travel down. And I kind of feel us touching on the fringes of it a little bit, but I don't really feel us getting in there and saying, gosh, this is, we could craft definitions and craft other things around it, but you don't have to answer. You could answer tonight, you don't have to, but I mean, that would help us really, bring this home or figure out where it fits. We can do all this stuff. We can answer these questions. We can go compare other jurisdictions. But I think that's a fundamental question you're all going to have to answer, is whether or not a landscape business, by definition, should even be under any circumstances permitted in AG1.
Mm-hmm. And to clarify that, obviously the existing businesses would be grandfathered.
That's right.
But and as other jurisdictions, they don't allow these businesses in Ag 1, I believe. In fact, the reason Fulton County, from what I understand, had done this way back was tax reasons and whatnot, for people to be able to, have a landscape business in the middle of a commercial area or whatever, but keep the property AG1, keep the taxes down. So, does anybody else have any comments on that?
I'd like to make a comment. Number one, we are constantly talking about how we want to differentiate ourselves from other cities and how we are not like the other cities and we are rural. And let's face it, part of being rural is landscape, some of these landscape nurseries and stuff that are out there. So to just say we can't have any of that located in the AG1 property, I think we're basically saying, well, we don't want that part of rural. We only want the pretty horse sitting in the pasture with the fence that doesn't poop anywhere and smell anything, but yet looks real pretty for people driving by. I think we need to tighten up the definition clearly. I think there's a lot of leeway. The definition was there. But for us to totally do away with that, we're doing away with part of the rural characteristics that differentiate Milton from other cities.
Okay. Jill, do you have a comment? I was going to go.
I was just going to say that from I would agree that we want to continue to promote horticulture and agriculture. I don't believe that the definition that's been put before us, though, does that. I think that we clearly have a distinction now, and I think the Planning Commission was headed there, was to be clear about the distinction between agriculturally and horticulturally based businesses and those that are more intense and that are truly of a commercial nature. And when you look at the types of vehicles, the size of potential operations, as well as the types of equipment, and even to staff's reference of commercial dumpsters, the very nature of the vehicles that we now refer to are commercial vehicles. And I think that the very nature of this definition has moved already away from plant nurseries and horticulture. Of course, plant nurseries, horticulturally based businesses are still very much allowable in agricultural land, and I would, of course, continue to support that. I think that what we're hearing from citizens and what we've heard before, and I think what led the Planning Commission to go down this path of looking for ways to better define and limit intensity, was that we were getting a misuse of our agricultural land for what really is a commercial and industrial business, which is why Roswell and Alpharetta and other jurisdictions do keep these zoned in a commercial and or industrial perspective. To answer your question, I would support exploring other options in direct response to what our citizens have asked us to do.
Okay.
I wouldn't, I can't answer that in a yes or no this evening. I don't think any of us can. I would like to see it brought up at a work session and then discussed a little bit further with some of these questions, and then see what happens in February.
Joe?
I couldn't agree more. We need more discussion on this, but some of the landmines that we're going to have to walk over include, because when I think landscaping, I can't differentiate that too much from agriculture, okay? When I think commercial, I think of anything that is operated as a business, okay? So we're going to have to get these definitions squared away and try to figure out how to make sense of all that.
Okay. Alan, you have any more?
No, I still, I understand the need to clarify the current definition. I do. I still have not been provided with a real reason why it seems like we're opening up the scope of what this definition includes. It's one to clarify, it's another to just open it wide open. And it seems like we're opening it wide open. And I'm trying to figure out why that is. So that's something I would like to explore in more detail during a work session, because we've gotten away from what I believe would be an appropriate landscaping business in AG1.
Okay. Well, it sounds like what we need to do in a work session is come up with that definition, is, what the council feels is appropriate and not in AG1 versus commercial, and certainly with the planning commission's input. So
do we need to vote to defer this?
Yeah, if I have a motion, then I'll
Figuring exactly out.
figuring out the dates and all that.
For this item and potentially the next one that you come up with, why don't we, let's do it on Valentine's Day. That sounds like fun. Let's defer it to the work session of February 14th.
Ooh.
That'll be a date specific.
I'll move to defer agenda items number 10-1300 and agenda item number 10-1301 to the February 14th work session.
Can we do both items?
I'd like you to vote on them individually.
Yeah, let's do them one at a time.
Okay. Revise my motion to defer agenda item number 10-1300 to the February 14th work session and concurrently send it to Planning Commission for their review.
Does that work on their calendar? Would that work?
Yeah, the January 21st meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Their next meeting will be the 25th, yes.
25th.
So we can get it to them. It's not necessarily required, but we could get it to them if you so wish.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Go ahead, Julie.
If that goes back to Planning Commission, would it go back to them with all the questions? Because at this point, we will not have had an opportunity to make any recommendations. I guess that's my only question, is when it goes, because I don't disagree that we'd want their continued input. I'm just suggesting that in January, we will not have had a thorough work session. So what would it that would go back to Planning Commission? Would it be that the breadth of the dialogue and questions that we've had, public comment, that would go back and you guys then would have another discussion about possible modifications, or is that?
I guess the question is, should it come to a work session for us first and then to Planning Commission, or if we want to get some input before our work session?
And I think we can't have a January work session, I guess, because we don't have a full council on the 10th, correct? And again, I'm all for having the Planning Commission look at that, as long as what they have before them would be a combination of the discussion that we had in our special work session as well as tonight, so they have the
At
benefit.
some point, we're going to have to, and I'm not suggesting that this is the right point, but at some point, we're going to have to stop the cycle.
Yeah,
Because
check it or
we're
the
gonna
ad.
go Planning Commission, Council, Planning Commission, Council, Planning Commission, Council, like we did with that one ordinance. Remember when we didn't know which was the current one by the time it had been back and forth? So I'm great with the comments of tonight. If we were to send it back to the Planning Commission on January the 25th, maybe it makes more sense then to defer to the work session of March the 14th. It happens to be the 14th as well. We'll see where that gets us. If we have something that we can live with after that period, then that's great. Just keep in mind that at some point we're going to have to say, okay, we've got to stop this cycle.
Okay.
Let's take some.
Okay, so what you're recommending is still allowing it to go to Planning Commission in January.
And then the council work session on March the 14th.
Okay. And I believe Bill had made a motion for February 14th, but would you, I don't know that we had a second on that.
I'll revise the
You wanna
motion
revise your
to
motion?
incorporate the dates dictated by the city manager.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Longoria to defer this item to a work session on March the 14th and allowing this to go to Planning Commission on January 21st, and so that we can have some input from them on that. Okay.
Mayor. I'm sorry.
The 25th, okay. Whatever the appropriate date is. I have a motion second. Do I have any discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm still trying to figure out what the Planning Commission's going to do. I mean, you know, we can send it back to them, and I mean, I think we raised some issues here. I'm not sure we raised all of them because we really didn't have a thorough work session to discuss it. So it could go back to them. They could make some changes. They can come back to us. I'm trying to figure out what all this is about.
I just, and Chris got a good point. I would assume that go to the Planning Commission and they can give us some idea of which direction, what they're thinking. Give us their idea.
Did they not already provide what they recommend?
But they haven't
Well,
reviewed
but
the attorney's recommendations.
Right, and with this new, talking about possibly, not allowing it all in agriculture or only in C1, we can kind of get some direction from them.
Yeah, we can get some more clarity from them. I will say, however, that they did discuss that. I mean, that was part of the discussion as to whether or not they wanted to consider it in C1. They came down on the side of changing the ordinance that we have now. Now, we can have additional discussion with the Planning Commission as to whether or not they want to further vet that proposition. And I'll obviously bring them all the commentary that you all have given to us tonight. So they'll have that also to react to. And I'm assuming then they'll have a slightly different recommendation depending on which avenues they want to take.
And if I may, just for clarity, because if indeed the motion is for January for the Planning Commission to see it to have further dialogue based on our input, wouldn't we then still hear it on the 14th of February? Would there be a reason that it has to then go all the way to March? I guess I was confused as to why we were saying that it would be March. I think I misunderstood.
It just depends on how fast we can get a recommendation. Either February or March is fine.
I think right now we've got a motion for March. And
I wasn't sure that I understood that additional month and a half. Was it just because staff needed some time?
I think that would be good to have the time. So, okay, got a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, now we've got this next item. I'll let the city clerk call the item, but probably don't need to repeat all the discussion unless there's public comment on that, and there's probably not. So then we can take another motion.
Next item is RZ 10-08, to amend the City of Milton zoning ordinance, Section 64-1, definition for landscaping business, agenda item number 10-1301, first presentation on December 6, 2010, discussed tonight at special called work session.
Okay, excuse me, do we have a motion and second in this item?
Mayor, I'd make a motion to defer RZ 10-08 for the Planning Commission to review further on the 25th of January and for us to hear it on the February 14th council meeting. I'm sorry, March 14th council meeting.
Is that a work?
Second the motion.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by, I believe, Councilmember Lawson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Next item is approval of a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Milton, Georgia, regarding 911 wireless enhanced 911 charges and voice over Internet protocol. This is agenda item number 10-1302. First presentation on December 6, 2010. Mr. Matt Marietta.
This is just a final vote on the item that we presented in the first presentation at the last council meeting. I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have any. anything else that's coming up.
Okay, does any council members have any questions for Mr. Marietta? Okay. Hearing none, any discussion? Not, do I have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 10-1302.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Tartt, seconded by Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. City Clerk will please say on the next item.
The next item is approval of a resolution to transmit the City of Milton's draft 2030 comprehensive plan, the community agenda to the Atlanta Regional Commission, ARC, and the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, DCA, for their 60-day review. This is agenda item number 10-1286. This was previously introduced at the November 1st, 2010 special called work session. First presentation and public hearing were heard at the November 15th, 2010 regular council meeting. Ms. Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Good evening. I just want to reiterate the process of the comprehensive plan and where we are in that process tonight. Upon the completion of the draft community agenda, the state requires several steps to occur before the final adoption of the plan. The first step is an official public hearing to allow the community to comment on the draft plan. This was held at the City Council meeting on November 15th, 2010. After the public comments have been addressed by CPAC and staff, the second step is a city resolution approving the transmittal of the plan to ARC and DCA for a 60-day review and comment period. This is where we are in the process. We are requesting approval to transmit the plan to ARC and DCA. We received many comments and edit requests from City Council members, members of the public, as well as the Milton equestrian community. CPAC reviewed all of the comments at the December 1st and December 8th CPAC meetings. Several edits were made and appropriate changes were made and highlighted on the copy that you have tonight. Is the draft dated 12/13/2010. Based on the response tonight regarding the request to transmit the plan, a clean copy will be sent to ARC and DCA for their review before the end of 2010, which is next week. After the 60 days, which will bring us to early March of 2011, ARC's comments will be brought back to CPAC and a City Council work session for discussion. Staff will prepare a final community agenda document. The final step in the comprehensive plan process would be to adopt the final plan via a city resolution. This will be scheduled for a council meeting in spring of 2011. And I'd just like to note that a city council resolution showing the adoption of the final plan is due to ARC and DCA before October 2011. Are there any questions about the draft that you have? And we have CPAC members here today, and I'll just be around for questions.
Okay, I'll just start on one end and move across with the council, and also if there's any questions for CPAC, I'll ask them to come up and address them. Karen, do you have any questions?
Can you start on that end?
I'll be glad to. Alan, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Just thank the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee for your work. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Joe?
same with me. I know that this has been a very difficult thing to get done, and so I just appreciate all the work you guys have done on it.
Okay. Bert?
Same. Thank you.
Okay. Bill?
Absolutely. Thanks for the effort that's been put into this. It's been one awesome task and weighty responsibility, as they say in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I would, I want to certainly echo that, and also that this committee is probably as close to doing almost as much work as the council up here as far as the time and the commitment. So thank you very much for that. Julie?
I'll just echo the comments. I know that you guys have put a lot of time into it. You've given consideration to lots of different groups and folks, and I just thank you and support that transmittal.
Okay. Now, Karen has a bunch of questions. Go ahead.
I did have a few questions because I actually submitted a lot of questions, and some of my questions were answered, and some of them doesn't feel like they were ever addressed. So I did want to find out, and I don't know if now's a good time to do that, or if you want me just to send them back to y'all at a later time to find out, because this is just submitting it for ARC to review. This isn't us actually approving what's here, correct? So we can still make changes to it at a later date.
Just the draft.
Yeah, that is true. But I don't know if, did you want to address? Okay, so yeah, George.
I think now is probably the right time, because I can say that I think the committee met even a couple of times to make sure everything is addressed. So maybe I won't be before it.
Go ahead, George.
No, we received written comments from two of the council members, Karen being one of them, and every one of your comments was reviewed by CPAC and addressed. That doesn't mean that there were changes made,
Right,
but every
yeah.
one of them was considered.
Okay, well, I
will note that, for Michelle's benefit, that I noticed in the draft she gave me tonight that I think you and I talked about, and I don't see included in there, is a notation that on the future land use map for those areas that we have recommended for master planning, the land uses that are shown there are the existing land uses, and they are subject to change once that master planning is done. That needs to be indicated on the future land use map. That's the only thing that, think of your comments that we said we were going to do and we did not do.
And there was another map we had that had some parcels that were actually incorrectly reflected on there. I mean, it had parts of Crabapple reflected at low density that is built out for townhomes. And
Hopefully those have been corrected.
but we don't have another map, so I didn't know.
The maps are in the package you have, and if those have not been corrected, that's just an error. We spent time talking about each one
Okay.
of those, and I think correcting them.
So you just changed that, like, all of Crabapple to be mixed-use living work instead
Correct.
of actually breaking
Correct.
it down? Okay. so
Correct.
it was
The
listed.
notation that I mentioned that you and I talked about is not there, and it needs to be put on there.
What George is talking about, you're correct, it's not on the map, but it's in the text, in the future land use narrative of the plan. It talks about the fact that we didn't make the changes on the map and that we will leaving it as is pending the redevelopment plans, as we noted in the future development narrative. So we could still put it on the map somewhere else.
Okay. And I don't know, since different sections have different page numbers, it starts over again, how the best way to do this is, under the community issues and opportunities, page number 3, development pattern / land use. One bullet says, new development threatens to encroach upon areas that are not suited for development. To me, that sentence makes really little sense. And I had asked for it just to kind of be reworded.
We looked at that specifically and decided that the wording that was there was what we wanted it to say.
Okay. So we can change it when we,
You can recommend a change if you want to, sure.
I mean, to me, it just, where it says new development threatens to encroach upon areas that are not suited for development, that just to me was not worded like it should be. I know it says here that the Birmingham Crossroads should just be developed strictly as the plan currently is. And I believe that for now it should be, but I think that going forward, and this is a 2030 plan, that we may need to make some changes to that Birmingham Crossroads, because the area as it currently is may not even have any development at all in it if we don't make some kind of adjustments to the Birmingham Crossroads plan. I mean, people are leaving that retail area very rapidly, and we don't want it to become a ghost town. So, if this is a 2030 plan, I think for us to say that we're not going to make any changes at all until after 2030 is a mistake.
I'll ask a question, though.
That you're certainly entitled to your comments. The consensus of CPAC is that we believe the plan that was developed for that area is the plan that should be implemented.
Even if it's all dark by the time it's...
That's not necessarily a land use issue. I mean, there are reasons that hasn't been developed that are not necessarily land use related.
I would agree. There's probably issues that the council can go back and look at some point.
Yeah, I
But
understand
not on-
we're
not on
saying
land
things
use.
for 2030, and that's, that's a long time away.
But don't forget that every 5 years you can come back and update this as things change. But certainly in the next 5 years, we didn't see any reason that we would want to deviate from that plan that's there from a land use standpoint.
And I'll just say that if we're going to start to change master planned areas that the community has weighed in on, that we've had surveys for, and if at the last minute we're going to start to change density of master plans at this late time, then we need to have some more community meetings, because this is the first that I've heard that certain master planned areas are suddenly going to be open for redefinition. So I think we need to be very clear about what changes at this point we're going to start to initiate.
Julie, you need to be more specific with your comment. If you're talking about Birmingham, the plan does not recommend any change in that plan. If you're
Correct.
talking
I realize
about-
that what's before us tonight, it doesn't.
Correct.
I guess I'm suggesting that if at this point, at this late hour, if we're, I don't mean tonight, but if we now are going to start to re-identify and start to make recommendations for changing
Yeah,
master
I think-
plans, I think we need to have a much broader discussion with a broader community involvement.
Yeah, I think that was a question Councilmember Thurman asked, but
Well,
it's
and
not
now what
the-
I'm just saying
not
is, I just hate to say
plan.
that we're not going to make any, we're not going to relook at the plan for another, 20 years. And that's pretty much what it says, is that we're not going to relook at it.
No, what it really says is, as we sit here today, we don't feel that there's any need to change that plan. 5 years from now, when you update it, if things change and there's a need to do that, you could do that at that time.
So is it something that in 5 years, we will be relooking at all of this?
It has to be updated every 5 years. Or I shouldn't say it has to be reviewed every 5 years. You can choose not to change it, but it has to be reviewed every 5 years.
Okay. Then on, let's see. And on, under the future development map and supporting narrative, on page 4, it says the master plan should avoid strip commercial development, parentheses, footnote definition. Where is that definition?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, I meant to put that definition in, so that'll be included before it goes down to
Okay,
ERC.
so it will be included, and what will that definition be?
What was the definition again?
We spent a lot of time talking about what the definition was for strip commercial development. And to give you kind of a very round view of it, it's development that is oriented towards a specific corridor, traffic corridor. It does not relate necessarily to any other roads, so therefore typically it's facing those corridors. And then spreads beyond the typical limits of commercial activity. So it doesn't necessarily have a good starting and a stopping point. That's strip commercial. It may be one tenant, it may be several different tenants, so it's not necessarily a strip center, but strip development happens all along the roadway. Like I said, there's the very round definition. We need to put that in a little bit more succinct way.
I just think
text, and
that,
I'm
we
sorry we
mentioned
forgot
strip
that.
commercial development several times in here, as that we're going to, avoid it, and yet I have no definition here that I can say, okay, what exactly is it saying?
We didn't ignore your comment, though. We did try to create a definition of what that meant so that we were clear about what we didn't want.
I apologize if I missed that in the text.
Yeah, well, I would
We
like.
did spend a lot of time on it.
I think that's something very important, and I would like to see what that definition is. So those were my main comments. So like we said, this is just submitting this to ARC, so we can still make changes. And I'm sure we will make changes, because they'll have comments that they'll send back usually, right? Okay, before the plan's actually approved.
So we have 60 days from now before they turn their comments back, and then we also have up until whenever we adopt the plan to make changes.
Okay.
After that. And of course, it needs to be done before October. So.
Check.
This year.
This October. Okay. Do I have a motion and a second on this?
Mayor, if I may. I have a question that came up that I didn't know I had until I heard that there was a new map that we hadn't seen. Can you just speak, Mr. Ragsdale, very quickly on Crabapple? I think I heard that all of Crabapple is now identified as a mixed-use zoning, and I think I may have misunderstood that.
The prior map was incorrect with respect to how it was depicted on the map and what had already been approved as part of the Crabapple plan, and all we did was correct that.
Okay, so we're not saying that that everything in red is defined as mixed use?
No, what we're saying, though, is that Crabapple, as well as Arnold Mill, as well as the Highway 9 corridor, we're recommending be subject to master planning to develop the more comprehensive plan. So what's there right now and what's shown on the future land use map for those areas is the land use plan that currently exists for those areas.
Okay, so it could include some AG1, some
Yes,
1 acre minimums?
It's what's currently in place.
Okay. And that the contemplation of a master plan is not contemplating that the whole of Crabapple is defined by the master plan would suddenly be converted to mixed use?
It's not contemplating or recommending anything. That's why it specifically is recommended that it be master plan.
That's right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve a resolution to transmit the City of Milton's draft 2030 comprehensive plan, the community agenda to the Atlanta Regional Commission, ARC, and the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, DCA, for their 60-day review. Agenda item number 10-1286.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lusk and a second by Councilmember Bailey. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. And again, I just want to echo to George and Paul and the rest of the committee. And Molly, thank you very much for all your work. And we certainly realize all the work that behind the scenes that you guys and the time you're putting into this. Okay. We will move on to new business. City Clerk, please call the item.
Approval of a resolution, amending Resolution Number 10-09155, appointing a member to the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Milton by appointing a member for District 6. This is agenda item number 10-1316. Councilmember Alan Tart.
Thank you. I would like to put forth a nomination to appoint Ms. Veronica Buckman as my appointee to Historic Preservation Commission. Ms. Buckman has been a resident of 1270 Rolling Links Drive in White Columns for the past 8 years with her Frank husband.
Frank husband?
Maybe,
Is he really
maybe her
Frank?
husband is Frank.
He's very directed
He's
Frank,
also
isn't he?
named Frank. And, oh, Lord. I'm still sick. All right, her youngest daughter, Kelly, attends Northwestern Middle School. They have two older daughters. One is at UGA, and one is a nurse at Emory, and a son, Frank Jr., is also at UGA. Ms. Buckman grew up in the Northeast and went to school in Boston, but raised her family largely in a town in Connecticut that's very similar to ours in its rural equestrian character. And she has gained a deep appreciation for history and uniqueness of the city, and she's a freelance writer, and so she's going to bring that skill set to this committee and research skills and being able to write and research on historical figures and places. And if she's approved tonight, she will be sworn in later because she's not here due to the Christmas obligations. Also, I wanted to point out that on the resolution that we will be voting on tonight, I believe her term would be concurrent with mine, which would be December 31st, 2011, not 2012, which would be in Section 1 of the proposed resolution.
Okay. Is there, I have a motion and a second on Mr. Tart's appointee.
I'll put forward a motion to approve a resolution amending Resolution Number 10-09-155, appointing a member to the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Milton by appointing a member for District 6, and specifically Ms. Veronica Buckman.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay.
If I could just to clarify, I guess, and I'll get to it, Councilman, you're probably absolutely right that I don't have the resolution for the Historic Preservation Commission in front of me. If it was the committee, I know it would have run concurrent with your term. There's a possibility that with it being a commission appointee that it doesn't run concurrent with your term. If we find that to be the case, we'll bring back a resolution that extends it, but it's always safe tonight to do it just through the period of your term.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion or any council members want to make a statement about their lack of appointee?
We'll vote on his, and my guy's going to be here to be sworn in on the 5th of January.
All right, for the record.
For the record, so.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Next item is approval of a resolution to approve the Highway 9 design guidelines. This is agenda item number 101317, presented by Ms. Lynn Toller.
Mayor and City Council, I'm happy to bring to you as a resolution to adopt the Highway 9 design guidelines, which you have before you. It was also brought to you in November as a work session, so I won't go into any detail other than that we did correct a graphic on page 7 to include some trees in the parking lot to better reflect our code, although it's not specific it's not has every tree in every place, but it's a general idea that we promote and require trees in parking areas. So basically, if you do approve this resolution to adopt the document, this will be published and distributed through our website and community development department, as well having it available to developers and builders in the commercial areas. Also, it has kick-started some text amendments that we will be proceeding with in January. We will be having the Planning Commission and the Highway 9 Design Guidelines Committee meet jointly to discuss the future text amendments as required by the new procedures. We're hopefully going to be meeting the week of the 10th or 11th of January. And so I went over those proposed text amendments during the work session, as well as discussing the inclusion of a sub-overlay for Deerfield has come out of the discussions as well. But if there's no further questions, or if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But this is the product that the committee has worked hard on, as well as the consultant, and just would like for you to consider it for approval tonight as a resolution. Again, it's not law, it's not an ordinance, but it's a guideline document. Although much of what's contained within it is already an ordinance, and then again, as I stated, we'll be trying to implement some of the new ideas of the encouragement of the type of design along the corridor in the future. So with that, if you have any questions.
Is there any questions for Robin? Alan?
I have one question. Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the text amendments and the continuation of the committee itself, have we verified from the original resolution whether that's within the scope of the committee to keep it going forward, or do we need to?
We just need one more. I believe we only need one more meeting, and it's real. Their work is done, but because of the procedural policy that you all have approved, we would want them to participate with the Planning Commission in a joint work session. So after that, it's done.
And so that leads me to my second question. Do we have a timetable for when those text amendments would come before us?
Well, this meeting, excuse me, I'm sorry. This meeting will be the first step in that process. So I'm thinking spring.
Typically, if they can meet that week in January that she mentioned, I think it's January 9th or 10th, that would allow the staff time to get together the additional commentary and potentially bring it to the Planning Commission by the 14th of February, or excuse me, by the 25th of February.
January?
We wouldn't be able to
Not by
advertise
planning
it.
commission.
Okay.
Planning commission would have to be in February, and then you all wouldn't hear it until March, and that would be the earliest. Like, again, that's assuming there aren't a whole lot of hiccups or other issues. So the earliest would really be end of March.
And I believe there's a work session as well, correct?
Right.
Prior to a
Work session
final.
would be here in council in March.
Okay. Julie?
Thank you, Mayor. When you refer to the text amendments, I know that when we had our work session on this, I think all of us had some suggestions for some additional detail and being able to move from encouragement to some requirement. Do you envision that that will be part of the discussion for the text amendments when it goes back to the committee and then when it returns to the Planning Commission?
Exactly.
So
Yes,
it's not as though those...
It's listed, it was presented at that work session. We have a whole laundry list of items that we separated away from the shalls, which is currently the overlay district requirements.
Right.
And we took the additional ideas or design ideas and requirements, or what we would like to be requirements, in a laundry list that we're going to discuss at that joint work session.
So the benefit of that work session will be what then moves forward, and what's before us tonight, it's not as though those have been ignored, it's just that the process
Correct.
now leads it to go to the Planning Commission for further refinement between now and either February or March.
Correct, yes.
George?
No, I was just
Yeah.
going to say it.
George has a comment card.
I didn't know if it related to this.
It does.
Please.
George Ragsdale, 540 Trayburn View. We're learning, but Robin refers to a joint work session that, to the best of my knowledge, has not been scheduled. What you're seeing tonight has never been to the Planning Commission. The process that we worked out last year was designed to try and avoid, to Commissioner Tartt's or Councilmember Tartt's comments, the protracted process. But because of the fact that we haven't followed it up until now with this committee, and I heard for the first time that this committee is potentially dissolving after one more meeting, that isn't consistent with the process that we agreed to last fall. The intent was to try and get the Planning Commission to work with this committee so that we could get the benefit of all the work that they've done and not pick it up as if we've never seen it before. In my mind, I'm not sure one work session would accomplish that. So I would ask that we go back and revisit that process and make sure that we're following it, because if we're not, we're going to just kind of go through an iterative process that's going to make this thing drag out pretty long.
Just to kind of talk about that a little bit, this committee has been in place for about 2 years. They've been working on these design guidelines for quite some time. They are not regulatory, as Robin mentioned. These design guidelines don't have changes to the text. Now, they are recommending some changes to the text, and that's why we're going back to the Planning Commission to get this joint work session. Similarly, we would do the same thing as part of that policy review with any of the other committees or commissions that are brought forward that would have a suggested text amendment to the zoning text. Obviously, the Planning Commission needs and should hear and review all the text amendments and recommended text amendments, and we'll be doing that. But again, we're trying to come to a collaborative process with the introduction of this work session, this joint work session that you all have approved as part of that policy originally.
Just as a understanding for me, and I guess that's why I was a little bit confused, is that when we had our work session, I guess I was assuming that before we approved this, it would go to the Planning Commission and that those text amendments would be discussed rather than approve this, knowing that it's not yet complete. Could you just speak to...
The design guidelines, again, they're not regulatory. These are just guidelines based on the regulations we have in place now.
But I
there
guess
are
that's
some
my-
recommendations for us to do additional work, and no, those recommendations haven't gone to Planning Commission yet. But that just came out of the discussion with that committee. That was not, like I said, those aren't necessarily all incorporated, other than there are some pictures saying, these are the things that we feel like are better, but they're not required.
But I guess that's my question. When we had our work session, I think that a lot of the dialogue was that many of us, I think collectively, felt that there was some more detail that was needed within this document. So my only question is, rather than approve this tonight, would we be better served having a draft go to the Planning Commission whereby they have that collaborative session and then it proceeds as a final document? I guess I'm not understanding the two-step process.
Well, again, when this was originally conceived, I think that it was conceived outside of necessarily the Planning Commission because their input would have been on the text, and this doesn't necessarily change the text. Like I said, even in its current form, it doesn't change the text. What they have found in going through it is that there probably should be some changes to the text, and that's what we want to address at the work session.
So is it, would there be any reason not to approve this and wait until the Planning Commission so we effectively have one approval of a document? Or are we saying that we're doing this as a matter of course, knowing that it's incomplete? And I don't mean to use that word as an injustice to anybody, but that if it's incomplete, we know it needs to include text. I'm just not sure why we're approving this tonight if it's not yet complete.
Because the text will never be part of this document here. The text will be part of the zoning amendment. So we'd have to approve the two things separately anyway because they're two different.
I don't know that I would say that this is an incomplete document in that, like I said, it does incorporate the text as it stands. So I don't know that it's an incomplete document. I don't know that I could characterize it that way.
Let me ask it this way then. Whatever comes out of that joint work session, I'm assuming that could include text amendments that would be part of the zoning code, but it could also impact this document that we're looking at tonight because the two are going to go hand in hand.
It shouldn't really impact it. Even, like I say, even the text amendments that would come out as a recommendation are encouraged in these design guidelines. The only thing that might change would be a should that's currently in the design guidelines that might turn into a shall in the future. But that would happen, I mean, that could happen with any of our design guidelines.
But what if there's a suggestion that comes out of Planning Commission that actually is something that has not yet been contemplated in this document?
Then we'd revise the document.
Okay, so in other words, there is an opportunity for whatever's approved tonight to still be modified as well as separate text amendments to be made.
Sure.
Is that correct? I just want to be clear because I think, again, the question that was raised by the chairman of the Planning Commission was a legitimate question. And so because none of those changes from our work session have been reflected yet, I just want to make sure that when it goes to the Planning Commission, there's the opportunity for changes to be reflected in what we're looking at this evening, because it doesn't reflect, I know it doesn't reflect some of the things that I had asked that we consider, nor does it reflect any input from the Planning Commission.
All the changes that were recommended by consensus at the work session were included. So those things were addressed and included, including changes to some of the pictures, which the illustrations that Robin had mentioned earlier. So. Okay.
Just to clarify, though, this document is a resolution, and if we pass it tonight, and then it goes to the Planning Commission, if there's something drastic or something that the Commission recommends or staff, it can be brought back to us and changed.
Absolutely.
So, okay. All right. Anybody else, or do I have no more discussion? Do I have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution to approve the Highway 9 Design Guidelines, agenda item number 10-1317.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
The next item is approval of a resolution to adopt the 2011 zoning and use permit, zoning modification, Board of Zoning Appeals, Historic Preservation Commission, and the City of Milton Design Review Board schedules. Agenda item number 10, 13, 18, presented by Lynn Tully or Robin McLeod.
I'll go ahead and take this. Basically, this is our various boards and commission schedules that have been coordinated when needed with the city council schedule, and so it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. Yes.
Okay, do I have any questions for staff on this? Alan?
I just have one question. I assume that the dates and everything have been worked out with the committees themselves.
I know the Planning Commission chairman has reviewed it, assuming the other commissions have too. So.
It's basically set up, though, just like in previous years.
Yes.
Yes, so the
I
only
mean,
one
I'm
we've
thinking
had
like the
any
Historic Preservation
Yes, that
Commission.
one was the one.
I mean, did we just pick a day, or did most of the
Well, no,
members say that's okay with them?
Angela, the planner, talked to the existing members
Okay.
to poll them what would be a good day, so it wasn't just pulled out of the hat.
Okay.
Yes.
We did have some difficulty finding a day that was free, however.
I'm sure. Okay, any other questions? Not, do I have a motion and a second on this item?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 10-1318.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Tartt, second by Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to reports. One thing, and I believe we mentioned it last time, but I also just want to thank Chief Edgar out there for the hard work that him and his department and our staff did with enabling us to receive a better ISO rating. So hopefully some of our citizens will see some savings, and also means that our city's a little bit safer. So thank you guys. Also Carter and his department, as we're now able to monitor our own erosion control. And I think I read Mark Errol was also passed some courses to be a, I don't remember the exact title, but
Well, I'd like to take credit for that, but that's Lynn.
Was Lynn, okay. Well,
But he did
good.
pass his certification erosion sediment control professional.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's a very small percentage of cities that can actually monitor that themselves. So we just want to thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Any council members have anything they want to report on? Okay. Bill?
Just wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
All right. I'll go next to staff.
Excuse me, a couple different things I guess we need to look at tonight is whether or not we want to have a January work session. I'm sitting here looking at the calendar. And, I guess we were scheduled for January the 10th. We potentially could move that to do that would put us at 3 Wednesdays in January, I think, because the council meetings will be the 5th and the 19th. One for the first of the year and the second because of a holiday. So we could go 12th if you'd like to. We have plenty of time to do that. Or we could try to put it before the meeting of the 19th, although I don't know how, maybe it was just a particular agenda item tonight, but I don't know how successful that was in actually getting something there. We certainly couldn't put anything there that we would need to take action on the same night. We could potentially have a work session for items that were unrelated to the following agenda. We don't have to decide that tonight unless there's a clear answer for all of you.
And just to clarify, you were saying that effectively instead of, to shift that from the 10th to the Wednesday of the 12th, is that what I was hearing?
That's one option.
One option, yeah. And then
the other option would be to have it before the meeting of the 19th. The third option would be that we just handle what we need to handle during the 2 meetings in January, and that we not convene a work session.
Do you know what's going to be on that work session?
It's light. I haven't seen that one yet, but
do we just add that to the? If
it's light, if it's light, we'll push it to February. If there's something that's super important, we'll put it before the meeting of the 19th.
Yeah. And that way, because I believe the 10th, we had 3 members that wouldn't be here, so that way no one would miss anything. Everybody all right with that?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, business license renewals are out. Just FYI, in case you get any questions, it did go out as we discussed with the frequently asked questions sheet. So people come and talk to you, tell them to look beyond the front page and actually don't do what I do with Power Bill, which is read the front page and throw everything else away. So if you talk to people in businesses, have them read the whole package. There's some good information in there.
Can you get us a copy of what was sent out, just so if people do have questions, so we'll at least have some idea what they're talking about?
Yes, ma'am. We'll also post a copy of that on the web in a new update.
Okay. Annual reports in full swing. Obviously, we're getting towards the end of the year. Annual report's going to be a bit different this year than it has been in prior years, which I think you're aware of from our budget discussions. We're not going to mail or print the annual report this year. It'll be available online, and because it's going to be available online and electronically, there really is limited use in distributing a calendar, as we have in prior years. It just doesn't seem to fit. So it'll be a more traditional annual report, but should be full of good information. Website going through some updates so that when we come back from the first of the year, the website won't look necessarily any different, but the content has all been looked at and updated. So look for some new stuff there. Look for an email from me in the next couple days with respect to the agenda item that we talked about tonight and other items when we have design guideline type stuff. I want to communicate some of the thoughts that I almost stepped out there and said tonight, and probably once you ring the bell, you can't unring it. So let me digest a couple of the thoughts that I was thinking as we were going through that discussion. So watch for an email from me on that one. I just heard from Lynn that the state census numbers will be out tomorrow. Now it's the state, not necessarily the city, but we're getting closer to the city. So just know that we'll watch for those. Haven't had any questions on this, but I just want to bring it to your attention. Typically at the second meeting of the month on the consent agenda, we approve the city's financial report. There wasn't a financial report on the agenda tonight. Nobody asked that question, but I'm just going to get in front of it and tell you the reason is because of the data migration to the new software, the new financial reporting software. That should be done, and we should have our finance director back in full swing by the time we get to the January sequence of meetings, so look for those to come back. If you have any specific questions, it's not that we haven't done it, it's just that it hasn't been as easy to spit out as it has prior as we start to navigate through this different but better financial reporting software. Obviously, next week, the week between Christmas and New Year's tends to be a fairly slow week. We will remain with staff at City Hall. City Hall will remain open. Every department will be represented. And if you need anything next week, it's not as though we're not here. There will be some people that aren't here, but we will continue with the full operation for City Hall, and we'll be at City Hall this week through Thursday, just to bring your attention to that. Last item I've saved, and this is just really to thank the council. I had the opportunity to attend the orientation for the Leadership ICMA a series of training that you all approved that I was lucky enough to attend. I spent the last 2.5 days of last week in the orientation for that, and I've got to tell you, I've never spent a better 2.5 days. I can only wait till when we get to spend 3 or 4 days together, which happens occasionally, not too often, but occasionally over the next 2 years. It was a level of training unlike any I have ever sat in before in my life. Awesome stuff. So I scared the staff this morning. Anytime you go away to those kind of trainings, you come back and I always think, oh, God, what's he about to change? So it's a good thing I got back Friday and had the opportunity to digest over the weekend and not come in here like a tornado this morning and say, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. But some pretty awesome stuff. So publicly, I just want to thank you all for at least offering that professional development opportunity. It certainly is going to be a one-of-a-kind experience. So, having said that, I think that's what we have tonight.
Okay.
Ready for executive session.
Okay. And added by motion and vote, do I have a motion and a second to adjourn into an executive session to discuss pending litigation and land acquisition?
Mayor, I move to executive session to discuss pending litigation and land acquisition.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, do I have a motion, a second, to reconvene the meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, I have a motion, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. That concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous also.
Merry Christmas, everybody.